Hello Internet! Today I'm going to be making one of these scrunchies on my Silver Reed SK10 knitting machine. You can of course knit scrunchies by hand on any sort of knitting machine that does stockinette, which is every knitting machine pretty much. We'll be making a long rectangle and then seaming it up around the hair tie and then seaming up the tube that it makes. And these are very simple and very fast, and they make you feel very productive. So for the yarn I'm using and the scrunchie that I'm going for, I'm going to cast on 120 stitches, knit for 60 rows, and then not cast off but sort of seam the fabric around the hair tie while it's still on the machine. I found that it's easier to seam while everything's on the machine with live stitches because I don't like casting off and then having to go back and seam everything when I can just sort of cast off and seam everything in one step. I have my machine set to stitch size 4 right now, but gauge doesn't really matter because they're scrunchies. Just do a stitch size that you feel gives you a good fabric for a scrunchie. So I'm going to continue knitting until I have 60 rows of my rectangle, and then I'll show you how to seam things up. Here's how I do the seams on my scrunchies. The first thing you want to do is set your carriage to slip in both directions. On my machine, that just means I push this lever from the center position all the way to the left or all the way to the right. It'll probably be different on your machine. The next thing is take your hair tie and put the corner of the rectangle through the hair tie, so when you seam, it'll be around the hair tie. So for the first stitch, you are going to just hang the first stitch on the partner stitch, I guess, the friend on the main bed where the needle is, and just pull the needle all the way out and then push the carriage over. And that will put the needle back in working position, but it will also knit those stitches off and combine them. So let me just show you. Instead of 2 stitches, we've just got the 1 stitch on there now. And we're going to leave that be, and we are going to hang the next stitch onto the next friend up here. So we just hang the stitch there, and then we grab the live stitch that we had just knit and put that on the needle. So this needle now has like 3 layers of stitches, and then we pull that needle all the way out. And then just slide the carriage over, and you will now have a single loop on this needle where you once had like 4. Because when you pick up stitches from the edge, I mean, I like to pick up 2, so that's personal preference. But anyway, pick up the next stitch, transfer it to its friend up top, and then grab the stitch that you just knit, transfer it to the same needle with the hung up stitch, pull that needle all the way out, and knit across. I'll do a few more of the seaming / casting off on camera so you can see a bit more, but I will do the vast majority off camera because it is rather time consuming and also boring. On my knitting machine, since I have the carriage set to slip both ways, I don't have to go all the way across the needle bed and like clear all the needles. I can just let it sit here, and it doesn't really complain if I do that. If you do find that your carriage doesn't want to go back to the right because you haven't cleared all these stitches, don't break your machine. Listen to what your carriage is telling you, and don't force anything to do something it doesn't want to do. So here's a fun question. How do you know which stitch to pick up from the hem to hang on the main bed? And the answer is pretty simple, but you do have to look at the stitches on the hem pretty carefully, and usually you'll have to roll the edge up because stockinette just curls. Each stitch that you will eventually hang up is one of these little V's. Here's another one, here's another one, and here's another one. And if you get lost, or maybe you stepped away for a second and you're not entirely sure which stitch to pick up, you can look at the last one, and you can see that this live yarn goes through this part of the knitting. So you'll want to go one stitch over, and that's the one you'll be hanging up next. And that's how you identify the stitches. Yay, scrunchie off the knitting machine. One key thing is, of course, to cut your yarn so you have a long enough tail to seam everything up and also have like working distance between the fabric and the needle. I'm using a double-ended transfer tool. This works fine. I always lose my tapestry needles. I don't know where I put them, but I usually have one of these attached to my knitting machine because I use these all the time. They're very useful. Anyway, this is the starting end of the yarn. You can just tuck that inside. It's not going anywhere. We don't need it. So how I like to do the seam is to find about the equivalent spot on the other piece of fabric as the starting yarn, which would be this side somewhere around here, and try to find the bar between the stitches. Oops, I had it and then I lost it. This right here. And pull tight, and then go to the other side, and in about the same spot, try to find the bar between the stitches again. You're looking for the bar between the column of V's, so maybe this is easier to see, but like between a column, obviously I'm not going to pull my needle all the way through, but the bar between this column of V's is what you want to look for. If you stitch between two columns here and two columns here and pull everything tight, you should end up with a fairly invisible seam. Hopefully your second seam looks something like this. It's a little bit wider up at the top, but that's fine with me. And it's pretty near invisible unless you really stretch it out, and then you can kind of see where it is, as long as you, of course, seamed down the same set of columns and didn't go off too far to the sides. But yeah, once everything is seamed up, you can just weave in this end, and there's your scrunchie.